trying to cross over to this side. Chrono Drag, huh? How did it get here? Chrono Jet Dragon? Are G units back too? Special Series Stride Deck Set Chrono Jet. Bushiroad.
Cardfight Vanguard. The Glitters have obtained great strength in response to each of their feelings. These heroes are back too. Booster Pack, Minerva Rising. Bushiroad.
Weiss Schwarz. A romantic battle of the brains unfolds again on the stage of Weiss Schwarz. Booster Pack, Kaguya-sama, Love is War. Now on sale. Bushiroad.
Who is this guy and why are we interviewing an intern? We don't have time for this. Let's get it over and done with, alright?
Oh, are we ready to go? Okay. Sure. Hey guys, and welcome to a very special episode of Coffee with Bushiroad. My name is Matt. I'm the TCG Marketing Manager for Bushiroad International. You may already know me as a Bushi Matt or the intern that posts a couple of memes on the Cardfight Vanguard Twitter account. So anyway,
Am I going to get fired?
this is going to be a bit of a special episode of Coffee with Bushiroad. Instead of having a host with me today, as you can see, I asked you guys to send me questions that I should be answering on camera, which is, I think, a mistake, but you know, we're going to roll with it. First question is, how did you come to be known as the Bushiroad's intern? It all started with a post that I put on the Vanguard Twitter that was like, I think it was the 4 cards that defined you, something like that. And I basically put in the effort to like reply everybody. I think people didn't expect the level of replies that they were getting, like the kind of jokes, or I guess maybe, or like the kind of like responses that they were getting were kind of unexpected from like the Vanguard Twitter account, and it kind of blew up from there. And now I got approval to have like my own account, and that has like 1,700 followers now. So thank you guys for that. And yeah, that's how I became. That's my origin story. Why did I start working in Bushiroad? Honestly, it was because I love card games. And you know, people tell you, oh, don't stop playing games because it's not going to get you anywhere. Well, guess what? Guess what, mom? Alright, so what is your favorite deck in Vanguard and Weiss Schwarz? Vanguard, probably like my Revenger deck. That's like one of the decks I really played with a lot back then, and I still have the deck. I really, really love it. So yeah, probably the Revenger deck. For Weiss Schwarz, let's see, maybe Goblin Slayer.
I have a question. What do you do to become so tall? But it's not because I'm jealous. I'm just asking for a friend.
Genes, I guess.
Like, do you like have special supplements? Like, do you drink a lot of milk when you were a kid?
It's part of the. Oh, do I have the answer? Okay. Well, I not really. No, I guess I just lucky. I didn't have to do anything special. But anyway, yeah. So I was saying, Goblin Slayer for Weiss Schwarz. Yeah, again because I played the deck a lot and I really enjoy the mechanics of the deck.
Do you like play basketball a lot?
No. That's kind of, yeah, I got the question a lot, but yeah, I don't really.
So like skipping ropes then?
I did skip a little bit when I was younger, but I was already pretty tall for my age when I was doing that. Is this really part of the? I don't see this in the list though. Do I have this?
Yeah, it's part of the question.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay, sure. What is the best part about working in Bushiroad? Wow, best part. I mean, there are a couple of things that really are pretty amazing. Like getting to travel and meeting everybody. I think that's one of the biggest joys that I have. Being able to see people enjoy the game like around the world. It's quite amazing. Another thing is, of course, I think you guys already know because I've been doing this a lot. We get to get like a couple of cards sometimes, you know, because we get like samples and stuff like that. And then we have something that's called a complete set, which is basically a single copy of every card that we release in a booster pack. and then we get some of these things, and then we get to build decks to play in the office, which is quite a lot of fun, to be honest. We did like a couple of remote fights and stuff like that, events where we get to play the players online. That was really fun. We do gunslingers. We used to do gunslingers also at events where we would play with players on the spot. That was really, really fun. So so we do get to build all these decks, and we do get to try out all these things. It's quite a lot of fun. Yeah. Alright, so and what's the worst part about working in Bushiroad? Can I say that on camera? I don't think I can say that on camera. Okay, but actually, I can think of something that is that's okay for me to say. Basically, I don't get to play in any tournaments anymore. That's actually kind of sad because as I kept playing games, I realized that I had this like small competitive spirit fire that reignites every time I watch everybody play at events or like online events. This online events, I'm there the whole time as well, making sure the stream's okay. I'm the one that's replying on the stream. I'm the one that's checking the stream, helping out at the back end also with the event itself. And every time I watch people play, I'm just sad that I can't participate in any more Bushiroad tournaments. But I'm here on the other side, so they're still kind of okay. But at the same time, I wish I could play competitively also. Because it seems like a lot of fun, right? Like you guys have like teams nowadays, and then everybody's like it's really like a festival atmosphere at the event. So I really miss that. Will there ever be a cameo of you in the Vanguard anime, sort of like how Daigo used to appear every now and then? If so, what deck would you be using in the show, and who would you want to fight against? I don't think there's ever going to be a cameo of me. I'm not on the level of Daigo. Right? Daigo's like a superstar. I'm not on that level. But it is cool to see people like Daigo appear, people like Tanahashi, Hiroshi appear as well. Those are really, really cool.
Hey, I heard you met your girlfriend here in Bushiroad, who's now your wife. Do you care to share more about that?
No. Will there ever be virtual tournaments like Bro in addition to in-person events? I'm not sure when this video is going to be posted, but I'm pretty sure Bro is already being announced. So, of course. I mean, online tournaments, digital tournaments, remote tournaments are very, very, very important, I think, now that we are in this day and age. And I think COVID just accelerated the idea that there are a lot of people that have no access to major tournaments. And I think online tournaments give those players an avenue to be competitive, like I said, or even just to play casually with your friends, right? Like you can join a tournament and it's simply casual in that sense. And I think it brings a different experience and a different kind of enjoyment, and bringing that to more people, I don't think it's ever going to be a bad thing. So if we can keep doing it, I think it's a good thing. I would love to keep doing online tournament. I think it's very fun. I mean, of course, we do have to stay online for quite a long time, and unless you guys, you guys may not know, but like I'm there for most of the only one that I'm not there for is usually the US times, because if I stay up for the US times, that mean I have like 2 days no sleep. I would love to be there though, but that's just how it is, right? But yeah, I do think we should be continuing online tournaments, at least for a good while. I do think it's very important. Yeah. So are there any future plans for working with community-run tournament organizations? So our stance on this has usually been for any organization to pair with a store. The reason being our main business model is of course selling at brick and mortar retail stores. We want to support our brick and mortar stores as much as possible. So as far as possible, we would like anybody who wants to run like their own tournaments, community tournaments, even if you are like a constant TO, to try and approach stores and get support from the store. So basically, you approach the store approaches us, and then we can provide the support from there. So I think, of course, this is still something that we've been doing because, of course, we want to support the stores, right? Like I said, but at the same time, we do understand that there's a lot of people who may want to get this support and they don't have a store nearby, so we have to explore these kind of scenarios. I guess it could be more on a case-by-case thing, but as far as possible, we want to work with TOs through stores. Yeah. Which deck would I be using in the show, and who I want to play against? I would take Ren's Revenger deck, and I want to play against Ren. Okay, because I really love the Revenger deck and I really like Ren, so I want to play against Ren and I want to use his deck to beat him, alright? I'm going to lose, probably, because, Ren has this insane plot armor throughout the series, up till probably like the last couple of fights where he will lose like an important fight. But like, I really like Ren, so that's
Like, do you have any tips? Like, do you bring her to like a dinner for a first date, or like, do you go to like amusement park? Like, what do you say to her?
Sorry, director, can we get this guy off the
So-
group, please? Like, it's not really question.
Wait, but it's
I
not
don't know what he's
description.
Besides games from Bushiroad, what other games do you enjoy at the moment? Oh, okay. I actually do play a lot of games. I'm quite an avid gamer. I'm playing right now. I'm playing TCG. I'm playing PCG also. You know, I'm playing
Hello. Welcome back to the Bushiroad Rumble Online 2023 V Premium EU Tournament. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Ben, also known as Zistrel, joined here this morning by JJ, known as GG Mr. Rogers, and Eric, known as Mr. Time Leap. Fellas, we've come to day 2, top 8. I don't know if you guys are watching NA or not, but that was pretty exciting. But even if not, I think our day 1 was still some pretty good games of Vanguard in and of itself. Eric, how are you feeling about today?
I'm very excited today because I probably have enough moments to talk about Gear Chronicle today, and especially in the upcoming matches that we're gonna have. So yeah, this day is bound to be very exciting with a lot of multi-teching strategies, a lot of combination skills of a whole plethora of decks that we're gonna see here in the top 8, and as well. Most importantly, we're going to see some high-level competitive players doing their magic, and I cannot wait to see that and basically watch that unfold before our eyes.
What about you, JJ?
It's been a stellar weekend. I've been able to enjoy all facets of Cardfight Vanguard. Everything that brought us together made us enjoy the game. The format has been great so far for seeing a lot of different strategies being used. A lot of great nature yesterday, decent amount of Royal Paladin. Hopefully we get to see some different archetypes today as well that we didn't get to see during this weekend, and I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said yesterday, despite the fact that the meta hasn't changed since the Worlds format, people still adapt based on what they expect to see, what they think their opponents are going to play. Even the Steam Maiden, the boogeyman of the format has changed and evolved a little bit slightly over time. So it's going to be interesting to see what's the next step we're currently on. But of course, before we get into the games today, there's still a little bit more we need to go through. So again, covering what we've seen today, what we're going to see coming up forward, and some of the prizes. So first up, Eric, why don't you walk us through the prizes they'll be playing for this weekend?
And what a prize we're going to play for this weekend or today that the fighters are going at each other's throats in top 8. As you can see on the screen right now, we're having a very, very special prize card with the special version of the Chrono Jet alternate artwork of the V version. But of course, they're not only playing for this particular highly sought after card, they're also going to play for some booster boxes and some certificates. And for the player that's going to go into the 4th place, they will get a special certificate which will have their name on it, and that will state that they made it this far into this tournament in the EU bracket of Bushiroad 2023. But if we move up to the 3rd place, they not only get the certificate and a copy of this special Chrono Jet Dragon, we also see that this player is going to get an entire booster box of set 8 for standard, for Overdress, which is of course the Minerva Rising set, which holds some very sought after cards like the Minerva numbered serial number card. So there's a lot of potential to get in those boxes as well. But of course, if we move up to the 2nd place, we not only get a certificate and one of these booster boxes, we get 2 cards, 2 Chrono Jets. So that's half a playset. But once you get more copies, players bound to want to have the entire playset, and one player is able to take away today, and that's the one and only, the grand champion of the day, the one that comes in at 1st place, as they not only get a certificate that will show them that they won Bushiroad 2023 for V Premium, but it also gives them a booster box and 4 copies of this special Chrono Jet. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of jealous of not being able to fight for these cards myself, but hey, seeing these people fight out for these cards and potentially the winner with a big smile once he gets these 4 cards makes it all worth it in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that the 3 of us as casters need to be impartial, but it's no joke that we are all friends with a certain Dave Vex, Mr. Muzrax, who's in top 8 right now. And we also know that he's a big gear main, and he definitely has his eye set on that playset of Chrono Jet. But yeah, this is the V version of the Chrono Jet with the Force marker, because this is the V Premium tournament. And if you guys want more BRO coming up, this weekend is just V Premium. But coming up later in the year, JJ, why don't you walk us through the upcoming BROs?
All right, for the upcoming BRO weekends, we're gonna be having.
Oh,
So
production
for
catch
the
up. There we
upcoming
go.
schedule, yeah, just gonna give it a second. For the upcoming BRO schedule, we still have Weiss Schwarz that are coming up on May 20th and 21st of this year. Then we also have Cardfight Vanguard standard format with Minerva Rising being in the format. I'm excited to see how that's going to turn out, especially with the newest sets of set 9 and set 10 on the horizon. We'll see how that turns out on the 26th and 27th of August. And later during the year, for you Cardfight Vanguard enthusiasts, the History Collection that is also coming out soon will hopefully be in time for November 18th and 19th for that BRO as well. So tune in, join up, and sign up. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, I don't know about you folks, but after having commentated some games this weekend and knowing that History Collection's on the horizon, I'm half tempted to play in the premium BRO NA myself.
Yeah, of course, like getting Vic 10 coming back, getting 2 axle markers and just going off. We don't know the full skills on the cards yet. This is completely
Off the cuff.
Yeah, this is off of the cards here. So we're hoping a whole lot of the archetypes of the old G era sets are going to be strong. Maybe some Blade Master and a thing in line again. Oh, it's going to be so nice to see.
Yep, and speaking of things that are nice to see, don't forget we have in-person events coming up this season as well. BSF Toronto was literally just this weekend. There are many more events across the world coming up in the next few months. So check out the Bushiroad website for more details. Team up with your friends, see some old and new faces, and play some in-life Vanguard. But for now, let's focus back to this weekend, what we're doing right here, right now, which is the online tournament of V Premium. So without further ado, let's take a look at our top 8 bracket. All right, so here it is, folks. The best of the best, your cream of the crop. Going down from top to bottom, we've got Dave Vecht, Ilya Tolly, Mark Guan, Teo JB, Ryan M, Kai I, Remy QJ, and Go JH. I think there's this whole swathe of flags, 2 players from Malaysia, but the rest from all over the world. And to me, that's really exciting to see because it just shows you that you wouldn't have this combination of players outside of Worlds, right? If it's like a European BCS, it would just be European players. If it was an NA BCS, it would just be American players. And being able to link from all across the world, like all different time zones, I think is just a really, really cool aspect. But yeah, we've got, just to run through the decks real quick, we've got Dave on Maidens, Ilya on Jewel Knights, Mark on Steam Maidens, Teo on Leopold, Ryan on Maidens, Kai on Ghosties, or I think just Grand Blue Toolbox, Remy on Ange, and Go on Maidens. So which of these 4 matches do you guys want to see, JJ? What's your opinion?
I kind of want to see what Ghosties are working with because you did see a Ghosties toolbox, and I did kind of look at a deck list. They are playing just one tech of a particular card. So it is still technically a Ghosties deck, but a lot of the V decks nowadays are running like one of certain boss units, so it facilitates like a end game finisher for the archetype. And I really like that practice from now on. It used to be with Jewel Knights. Some people used to run MLB back then, and then some other archetypes are running Chronojet and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see people taking these really interesting design approaches.
All right, what about you, Eric?
I do agree with JJ's sentiment on the ghosty ones. This is always an interesting matchup between Steam Maidens. But there's another match on this sheet that we have that's somewhat special to me, and that's Dave's matchup against Jewel Knights. As I may have some history with the matchup itself, with Jewel Knights and Steam Maidens going off each other, as way back when these decks were revealed, like I think a year ago, 2 years ago with initial support, I did like a special collab with Philip back in the day where we tested these cards out, and those matches were something else. They were very special, and I'm very curious how that feels seeing other players pilot the deck and basically see the same thing from a bird's eye perspective. So that's something that has like a special memory to me that makes that matchup a little bit more unique than the rest that we see here on this top 8.
All right, very cool. I also want to highlight again, that top half of the bracket, Dave Vecht, Ilya Tolly, Mark Guan. These are some really well-known names in the community. Like if Dave and Mark win their top 8 games, that's a Steam Maiden mirror match in top 4 between two people with multiple trophies under their belt. And of course, Ilya himself is one of the top Premier EU players as well. He's no stranger to the top 2, top 4 tables either. So I'm really interested to see like what comes out of that half of the bracket. But I think, yeah, we are going to show Ghosties on stream for the first round of top 8. So without further ado, actually, before we get into the deck lists, the production team has very kindly made some stats for us. So let's take a quick look at those before we jump into the deck lists. So coming up first is going to be the representation chart. So like I mentioned, half the top 8 is Gear Chronicle, and 2 of the top 8 are just good decks that we expected, and then the other 2 are maybe sort of more rogue pick. I think Jewel Knight is a solid deck, but if you told me that Jewel Knights is gonna make top 8, I would have been like, I can see it, but I wouldn't expect it. No Shadow Paladins, kind of a surprise. Great Nature in Bermuda, not a surprise. But Grand Blue, like, yeah, wow, props to him for squeezing in there.
Yeah, you're right about that one. With Shadow Paladin, I think it comes down to a big issue with the deck. It sometimes fights itself, since it requires like a whole lot of exact pieces to. We talked about this also off stream. It requires like a bunch of exact pieces to work and keep on going right the entire time. And if those don't fall into place, it sometimes flounders. And the things with Royal Paladins, all you have to do usually just ride up, and they kind of just do what they need to do. They just get the job done whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even tell you the number of times I've been playing Luard and open Drag Driver in my opening hand. Eric, what have you got to say about these statistics?
They're to some extent what we were expecting and what we were saying in yesterday about which decks we expect to do well and which decks not. And in Royal Paladin and Grand Blue's case, like there are definitely decks that just do their thing and they aren't hindered by most decks, and they're doing well against rogue picks, and they have to some extent a good matchup against like the top echelons. But the interesting thing about the Ghosty deck itself, I've personally been an advocate for a while that it has a very decent matchup against Steam Maidens, as these engines are very similar to each other. And ironically, Steam Maidens is to some extent a copy of Ghosties, as Ghosty did it first before Steam Maidens. But the interesting thing is, I would say Ghosties would have had a better matchup before the restriction list, before the Colossus got banned, because Ghosties had so many special defensive options. They could to some extent navigate around that card, but now that card being out of the pool, they don't have that special edge. But that said, they don't have to deal with it anymore. And the same goes for all the other decks. And that potentially allows cards or decks like Royal Paladin and Grand Blue have a potential chance against Steam Maidens, as they don't have to combat that to some extent oppressive card to deal with them in the late game, which potentially could give them a win in some of these top 8 matches that we're going to see here in a second.
All right, there you go, folks. The Gear Chronicle expert giving us the first of many deep insights. So let's take a look at the second graph, which is going to be the conversion rates of these decks. So the blue bar and the numbers on the left tell you how many people were playing the deck, and then the red bar and the numbers on the right tell you how many of them topped. So you can actually look at the size of the bars as a sort of, not percentage conversion, but average conversion. So we can see here, loads of people played Gears, and as a result, loads of people topped with it. Load of people played Bermuda, but only a few of them topped with it. And likewise, very few people played Great Nature, but most of them topped with it. That's kind of how you can see there. And I think it's, again, mention the fact that there were Shadow Paladin, third most played deck in the format. None of them made top 8. Like, maybe, like you said, they lost themselves. Things like Genesis and Link Joker, the quote-unquote Steam Maiden counters, losing out to the likes of Great Nature, Aquaforce, Gold Paladin. I think there's a lot of dynamicism behind the format that probably is best saved for another time, because if we talked about it here, we would be here for way too long. And I think people at this point are itching to see the games, the players already. So let's now jump into the deck lists and get into the games as soon as we can. So we're going to go down in matchup order. So we're going to start with Dave's list. And obviously we're going to finish up with the Ryan and Kai who's going to be on stream. So starting up is Dave versus Ilya. And Dave is on what can only be described as literally Steam Maidens with zero text. It's just Steam Maidens as you expect.
Yeah, it's essentially what you could call the good quality Steam maidens. You just single out what are my best cards, and we're just gonna play the maximum copies that I can allow to play these cards. So we see a full playlist of the main grade 2 cards that allow you to do your whole engine, draw your pieces, and do your multi-tech options. We fully load up on our Uluru grade 4, as it's not only a massive shield that can help us in the late game, it allows us to shuffle back triggers, and of course it's your massive shield that could, and it helps you to accelerate your bind, which is also the same thing with Renovate Wing. And then your grade 1s are of course the typical Gear Cat in combination with Enterana, and your Lost Gear A to toolbox for your grade 3s. And importantly, we have the grade 1 that allows you to multi-tech as well as your best setup for your grade 1 play. And honestly, it's basically good stuff. Steam main there's nothing really special that I can highlight that we don't know and what we can expect. The only thing that's how we're going to be special in this match is how Dave is going to pilot this deck, because it might look very clear through. It's very obvious how this deck pilots, but once you see him using the deck, you might realize, oh, that's an interesting way to play the deck. Never realized that that's an option. And I'm not going to go over all those options because we would be here for hours and hours.
Yep, so let's move on to his opponent, Ilya Tolly, and we saw him on stream yesterday, but he was playing Jewel Knight, so a quick run through again. JJ, anything special about this deck you want to shout out or highlight?
This is a deck after my own heart. I kind of talked a little bit about it a bit earlier before. It's a stock list of Jewel Knights. Their ratios are fine. They are a competent player knowing exactly what the deck does, and they've showed that during the feature match during this tournament. So trust me, this is tried and true. If you want to use this list, I highly encourage it. It's really good.
Yep, all right then. So moving on to the next matchup, we've got Mark versus Teo. So Mark Guan, also known as WCC Hakase, also playing Steam Maidens. His list is a little bit more teched out. So we see the one copy of the Kurunta, which I know a lot of people like because it's removal, which is excessively good in this format, and also 2 Lost Break Dragon. So Eric, real quick, walk us through that.
Yeah, so this is quite an interesting card that most people will probably be scratching the back of their head of, okay, why we're playing this old school card. The thing about this card is it allows you to be very aggressive in the early game, as you can just slam it down, cycle through your hand, try to fix your hand a bit, because a very important thing about Steam Maidens is you live and die essentially by your Enteranas, especially early on. So you want to get options to get to that card as fast as possible. And the problem is with Naboo is that Naboo is drawing after you attack, so that's after turn 2. That's a bit too slow, whereas Lost Break is essentially you place it and you cycle and you go 1 card deeper through your deck, and while you're doing that you can not only accelerate your bind zone, but potentially if you're stuck with a combo piece that's not in your bind zone, like one of the grade 3, 2, or 1, this is another card that allows you to fix that to some extent. So there's a lot of different aspects to this card that actually work very well into Steam Maidens. That's hence we see 2 copies over this, as it clearly shows that Mark puts more value on this one over the Garunter, which is a one-off, and over the Naboo, which is a one-off, which is kind of interesting, but I could definitely respect Mark's decision on this one, and I'm curious how that's going to pan out for him.
Yep, absolutely. So looking at his opponent, we've got Teo, who's playing Leopold. Again, another person we had on stream yesterday. And his list is a little bit different to the regular Leopold list. I think, JJ, you mentioned this, that usually with Leopold, we see like the Tester Fox combo. But here, Teo's gone, nope, I don't need Tester Fox, I need Culture Gorilla.
And near culture person indeed. We did talk about this earlier. This does have a higher ceiling, and because of this, your explosiveness in one of your in-between turns or your turn 3, or if you high roll enough, even your first grade 3 right can oftentimes lead to lethal against your opponent, putting them on 6 damage relatively quickly, giving you your rear guards extra power via Hamden, or you're also using your Cultured Gorilla to restand your rear guards again with your critical pressure. This is just going to be one of those decks that if it gets going, it's going to be very difficult to stop. He's running a lot more front triggers, up to 10 front triggers, because he's moving 2 of his draw triggers over to add more front pressure in case he draws them or damages them. He can have more access to them. People would say, well, you could just play Tester Fox and send your fronts in and decompress your deck and filter through and stuff like that. You're like, nah, I just want to end this as quickly as possibly can. I like this list.
Yeah, I definitely respect it. Like, watching a bunch of Leopolds on stream yesterday, I kind of almost want to give the tenet of, it's almost like the Luard of Axel clans, like, in terms of what it does. It's just like, spits a board out of nowhere, and then just bashes you down like at light speed. Very cool. Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't succumb to the pressure of Steam Maidens. But moving on to the next match on the other half of the bracket, we've got Remy versus Go. So let's take a look at Remy's lone Ange list. Now, I think it's fair to say that with the restriction on Kutere, Highlander's not dead in V Premium, but it's definitely been kneecapped severely, and people are now looking to Ange in terms of its high floor, high consistency, solid reliability, and still a bit of edge. And there are loads of different builds of Ange as well, and like Ange Rolenka, Ange splashing other engines, other bits and pieces, Ange with some like Highlander bits and pieces here and there. And here, Remy's choosing to play, quote unquote, Highlander, but not quite. So we've got the Pearl Sisters in there. We've got a handful of one-offs at the grade 1 line. But more importantly, we still have all the raw consistency of Ange, the Top Idol Aqua, and the Lieselot, just so you can get into these Highlander pieces and maybe like snowball and just hit your opponent early game out of nowhere. I think it's a really solid deck that a lot of people have put a lot of effort into. There's like I said, there's no one way to build Ange. There's no right way to build Ange. And so it just comes down to not personal preference, but what you expect to see. Do you expect to see decks where they're trying to like grind you out of the game, in which case Ange just stacking force markers and continuous plus gets you there? Or are you looking for more explosive finishers? So you maybe want to play Right or Prism hybrids or what have you, maybe Reindeer variants. I think the fact that he's gotten to top 8 definitely speaks a lot to both the build and himself as a player. I'm sure a lot of people might know the username Kuroneko on Twitter. That's Remy, that's him. So again, another pretty well-known community figure here in the top 8. But moving on to his opponent, we have Go also on Steam Maidens. Let's see what techs he's running.
So as we can see with this list is that it's very similar to what we saw with Dave's list, but there's a very important distinct difference. As unlike Dave, where he doesn't play complete 4-off in his grade 2 lineups. He's playing 4-off Antarana, which is obvious, and 4-off Lu, which is also very important. But his Nabus are only a 2-off. And for that room that he creates, he puts 2 extra Grunters. And this is honestly something that really speaks to my heart, as I'm a massive fan of playing at least 1 or 2 Grunters, as it just opens up so many options to potentially plus on your opponent, but also control the board and toolbox your deck. Because Steam Maidens is known for toolboxing the bind zone, but not necessarily the deck itself. Their only option to get through the deck is either draw it, or to use the gear cat to check the top 3. But if you need a specific card, you cannot really search it out if it's not on the top of your deck. And that's where Garunta comes into play. And being able to also tutor it out from the bind zone in your during your multi-tech options, it allows you to extend in different directions, which opens up quite an interesting play. And I'm kind of curious of how Go is going to incorporate this in this playstyle. And I'm looking forward to that one, as it's honestly, in my opinion, probably the more optimal way to play Steam Maidens. But as we've seen so far, every player has his own thoughts on this and his own opinion. And I think there are many different ways to play this deck, and I'm curious of what to see for the next one. And talking about the next one, we have one more Steam Maiden deck to go over. As for the fight that we're going to see on the stream itself, we have Ryan's M Steam build. And luckily for you guys, I don't have to talk about this list anymore, because as we see, it's a direct 1-for-1 copy as we saw with the list of Dave. So everything that I said for Dave applies to Ryan, and we can essentially immediately dive into the matchup that he's going to face against opponents, which is, of course, the Ghosty match with Grand Blue. So I think, JJ, you're probably the best to tackle that build. So let's go through his opponent and see what we can see here in this upcoming match.
All right, so with this toolbox matchup deck, this deck here is with Ghosty Leader Beatrice. Her ability to be able to toolbox all the Ghosties that you want LTR drops on, being able to utilize them with multi-attacks when they're being retired from the rearguard circle. And you also have the top-end finish of using your Vampire Princess of Night Fog, Night Rose, of being able to close out the game with Skull Dragon combinations. It does not use any of the other utility pieces that some of the other Night Rose decks have usually used, like cutlasses and stuff like that. Instead, it's going for the first grade 3 ride, possibly using Protect 2. Usually some build of Ghosties tend to go Protect 2 instead of Protect 1, depending on the matchup. And usually they tend to go for Protect 2, giving their Ghosties a little bit of extra power to push. and they are running a little bit more draw power in running 7 draw triggers because they need to really find all those combo pieces and ghosties to be able to finish off their opponent. It is a very stunning list. I am excited to see how it turns out. I am a avid fan of decks that can have toolbox and recursion, and I'm happy to see how this one turns out.
Yep, absolutely. It's almost like not quite a mirror match, but very similar, right? Steam is going to go from 0 to 3. Ghosties is going to go from 3 to 0. They're both going to plus a lot based on the fact that they're making a board for free. I think it's actually going to be a very interesting matchup. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is top 8 of BRO 2023 EU V Premium. Plays are set up. We're ready to begin. I guess the question that people should expect me to ask by now is, fellas, who are you banking on?
Historically speaking, Ghosties has been a relatively pretty good matchup into Steam Maidens since their combinations usually starts at their first grade 3 turn. It doesn't really matter who goes first or second usually, since Ghosties oftentimes just needs a Skull Dragon to start off their combo with, a grade 3 that can retire itself, and it can continue to go down to grade 0. And since their Ghosty grade 0s, which is the heal trigger, is also a 25k interceptor, it stops like a whole extra multi-attacks that your opponent sometimes lays into you with.
Yep, we see here Ryan hitting the double cat on turn 1. It's pretty solid. It's a nice +1, but at the same time, those are cats that aren't in the deck for you to search out with Enterana. And here, I really like what Kai's done here. Kai's seen 2 cats and been like, okay, well, you might have the Enterana, so I'm just going to damage deny you so that you can't Enterana me on turn 2. What do you think about this, Eric?
That's probably one of the plays that most people anticipate when facing a Steam Maiden, because that one counterblast does a lot for a Steam Maiden. It not only plus searches you a deck, which filters, but then also activates potentially the cat. And if you call Enterana on a rearguard circle like we see here, they also have that draw skill. So now Ryan has to dedicate 2 cards from his hand to potentially activate that Enterana, which forces more from Ryan to get this engine going a little bit here. So that might put Kyle in a very favorable situation.
Huge draw trigger coming in, though, suddenly makes it all okay. Of course, these attacks do still hit. They're 18 versus 18, but it's only 5k shield. And as you know, Grand Blue wants to give up its 5k shields because those 5k shields are its combo pieces that it will need to get going.
That's right. Now he's going to be using a quick shield here. It's going to be Soul Blasting. Ryan will be looking at top 2. It's going to bind 1, add 1. It is a heal guardian, so you could potentially use it for next turn. There's not a lot of situations that he'll be able to use that. Draw. Trigger's going to go to the drop zone here.
And then Nabu goes into Soul to draw a card. And I really want to highlight here that Ryan had to commit a lot of cards to have this early aggro. Every single thing he's put onto the board, sure, the cats replaced themselves, but the other 3 cards came out of his hand. Like normally when we see Steam Maiden play, they get to like turn 3, turn 4 with like 9, 10 cards in hand. And Ryan here is sitting on like just 6 or 7, which means that unless his grade 3 turn gets a lot of tempo out of nowhere, Kai can really pull ahead in terms of card advantage.
That's right. So Kai is just going to have to kind of decide, would you want to give him the damage here or try to poke out Enterana? Because he can get it back either way, right? Using the skill of Ilul. So it doesn't really matter how he goes about it. He just needs to figure out like what he wants to do with his turn, because he's currently on 1 damage right now, right? It's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And at the same thing, also thing to consider is that Ryan's board is a bit awkward at this point, because he put Enterana in front of the Ilu combo extender, which means either he needs to get rid of the Enterana to push the Ilu forward, or he needs to lose out on the Ilu's potential combo potential, as it's an attacker and not a booster to do your combo plays. And I'm kind of interested in why Ryan decided to call the Naboo in front of the cat and not just decide to put the Enterana in front of the cat, as he wasn't able to use Enterana skill anyways. Because it now forces Ryan in a situation, if he wants to use Enterana next turn, once he get Counterblast, then he has to call it in a column that forces to call a cat on top of one of your grade 1s, which means you're negating your pluses you can generate, which is never a good thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like JJ said, even though that Ryan can use a to like pull back, let the Enterana go to bind and then call it back from bind, he would be calling over a cat or calling of something, and that would be a waste of resources. But here we see Ryan actually having to G assist. He does find the LL, but it's going to be his hand is what? 2 more elols, a draw, a
PG.
heal. What is that behind the PG?
I think that's a Naboo. I think.
Yeah, there might be an Abu. Yeah.
He's got an.
Yeah, that's an
I think
Abu.
it's right. Okay, so we see that Ryan using the heal guard on Kai's swing, which is very interesting because this is protect versus force.
Mhm.
Columbard is only 9k, or I think it was 12 actually because it gains power, but the heal guard stops him attacking, which means that Ryan goes into his grade 3 turn with no counterblast, which means no combo.
Well, he had to use the heal guardian here because then he couldn't
He would
use the
have
assist.
G-assist.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Wow,
He
that's
had
really
no option
unfortunate.
to.
He's kind of like not bricked himself, but he's become almost unable to like really play the game and build this advantage that we said that he needs to build. Meanwhile,
Mhm.
Kai can just freely do whatever he wants, as long as he gets at least one counterblast here.
That's right. And he also has access to just intercepting with the Greed Shade here, keeping himself at lower damage. Ryan possibly could hit like a critical here, putting him to 3, but if any of those become like a defensive, highly likely a defensive draw since he runs 7. And Kai also happens to have Night Rose in drop. We know there's a Beatrice in hand, so he can Greed Shade again, get back the Night Rose for later if he wants to use it for pieces. So, like right now, since that Night Rose in drop zone, it secured him a win condition for the rest of the game now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the cool things about toolbox decks like Grand Blue is that you have not just flexibility in your game plan, but dynamicism. You can be like, I'm going to play, this Steam Maiden like combo, and then all of a sudden, bang, 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 go into like this, 20k columns with Night Rose, which I think is really, really effective. And again, here we see Ryan calling over his Enterana. So that Enterana has literally provided, outside of the Soul Blast 1 on boost, has provided almost 0 value. Because he actually added the heal, which he had to burn with that Enterana the turn before. And he's calling over it with an Illil, which is slightly weaker columns, but I guess he's just trying to set up for his combos next turn.
He's trying to maximize the value he can generate with this Ulu because Ryan had 2 options. He could call the Grade 0 Uluru from hand and combo into the Gear Cat from Bind Zone to get potentially +1, or he could do the play he's doing right now and just attack with the Ulu on the Force Marker, time leap it into the Grade 2 Antarana, and then use the Antarana while boosted by the Grade 1 behind it to use the Soul Blast skill. And he can then Soul Blast the Grade 2 that's in the Soul and then bind it next turn. Because even though Ryan is here at 0 counterblast, it does open up his room for him to now slowly set up his engine. As Ryan did low roll quite a bit, and now this turn is giving him some breathing room, even though he has the G assist.
Yeah, Kai there hitting another defensive draw. So even though Ryan's playing less aggro and going for more draw cards, farming, Kai's being able to match up with him pretty 1-for-1. And again, even though Kai's losing the damage race, during Kai's next grade 3 turn when he rides the Beatrice, I think we're going to see a massive tempo swing. Like, look, Ryan only has 3 or 4 cards in hand. That's going to go up to like 6 maybe after drive checks and using Enterana during this turn. 6 cards is not a lot of cards to guard like a 7 attack ghosty combo with. So we might see Ryan go from like 0 to 3 or 4 during his next turn.
And now that was a 2 to pass just now, since Ilil does get plus 3k for every card that is bound.
But it's 2 5k shields that really don't do a lot. So you see here the play that he's going for, which is using the LL free leap into the Enterana. And he's going to Soul Blast 1 to try and add 1 more card to hand and go up to 5 or 6, just to try and do something against ghosties. Sees a trigger and an Ilil. I think you add the trigger here.
Yeah, you would definitely
you need a
agree.
shield. You need a raw shield.
It also sets up combo. So he already has an Illil in the bind zone, but yeah, having more is just good, and you can always call them out. I don't know if he has the Uluru heal in his hand or not, but starting from 1 to 3 is still good enough, even though it's not quite the same as going from 0 to 3. So Kai there riding the Beatrice as we expect. Protect 1 in this matchup, which is very interesting.
Usually you want to go protect 2 in this situation, since it makes your numbers hit a little bit better. It makes your 13 hit for 18, which is then a 10k shield instead of a 5k shield. So this is a very interesting approach that they're going to be taking with this one. Ghost Ship is still going to be hitting for a decent amount. It's going to still hit for 24, still a 15k shield. But I don't know if I like this that much.
Yeah, he's using his counterblast on Columbine instead of on Beatrice, which is really interesting. I guess the reason behind Protect 1 is because now that you know that Gear Colossus doesn't exist, PG Sentinels are a lot more reliable than crit Sentinels. And eventually, if you are trying to play the grind game, which I think Gear Chronicle always does want to play, you will get into a position where these LLs get so big because of so many cards in the bind zone that the only way to guard them effectively will be to PG. So maybe he's just trying to play the super long game.
Fair enough. And he is at 2 damage, and he doesn't want to hit with a random. He doesn't want to hit with an occurrence that if his opponent hits a crit, that he can't do anything about it. So I guess, you know what? That is very logical. Yeah, I really like that alternative. It gives him a way to protect himself.
Yep, so Kai there using Columbine to search for Jesse, discarded, to get back the Greed Shade, filter into another card, which he can probably, I think at this point, either add back the Night Rose for next turn or a heal. He's going to go for the Night Rose. He's setting up for his turn 4, turn 5 win here. And now what's really cool is you can then retire both the Columbine and the Greed Shade to bring that Jesse back. But of course, you're going to mill 5 first because Navigator is just a really, really good card.
Oh my
God! And a Skull Dragon.
This might be disgusting.
I think that's the second best Navigator mill I've ever seen in my life. No triggers and a Skull Dragon. You could not ask for better than this.
Well, and the Ghosty Guard as well. So there's just a free shield that you
Tap the Ghosty, yeah, which can call itself from the drop zone to guard your Vanguard. This is insane. So now he's got the Jesse. He also milled the grade 1, whose name I forget as of right now. But that's also counter charge, and he's going to be able to go from 2 to 1. I don't know if he has a 0 in his drop zone or not, but it's going to be full combo.
The Ghosty that's in the drop zone is also a grade 0. So yeah, you're right. He has the combo that he can kind of just go into it as well. So he can intercept with it from the rear guard if he wants to call it. So he's used Jesse into Damien, and then Damien can go into Chappie. I think he milled the Chappie as well. So he has so many things that he can do right now this turn. He can do no wrong. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the world is his oyster. I can't believe what's going on here. So Damien comes out. He does have a second Damien in the drop zone, so there's no concerns there. And yeah, we're about to see full combo. So for those of you at home who might not have seen Grand Blue before, Beatrice here, her final skill is when your rear guard is retired by an ability during your turn, counterblast 1, and then call a grade 1 or call a grade less than what was retired Ghosty from your drop zone to rear. So as we saw, Damien and Jesse, who are both on your screen, retire themselves in the battle to counter charge. So that counter charge can then be used on Beatrice to go 1 down. So Jesse retires for a counter charge, as we're about to see here. Beatrice counterblasts to turn Jesse into Damien, and then Damien will attack, counter charge, and then Beatrice can use that counterblast to go into a 0.
Which is either Pat or Damien, but I could be wrong. I thought I saw a Chappie, but I'm not sure. But he could also go into Pat if he wants to. But then if Pat is retired from Guardian Circle is bound, so that's something he wants to probably keep in mind.
Yeah, so Ryan there using the grade 0 heal, trying to stay low on damage, which is really interesting. And using the grade 0 Uluru here, I think is good because it puts it into rotation so that Ryan can now bind the grade 0 from drop with LL skill to go into his 0, 1, 2, 3 combo next turn. Well, assuming he takes damage, which I think you probably take the Skull Dragon here and then guard this Damien column because no triggers from Kai means that it's just a 16k, no Protect 2. There's not a lot you can do with the numbers here. But no, Ryan, he's actually choosing to go into the rear guard, and Kai maybe just passes here. Do you maybe attack with a Damien unboosted for the counter charge? I see no reason not to.
It still hits for 13, so it still gives him a damage.
Right, Damien does gain 5, so you might as well boost, give Ryan the damage, get the counter charge, and try and do something with that anyway. So something that I put a lot of thought into, or not myself particularly, but myself and the rest of the fellows in the UK group. Obviously, we all know Sea Maiden is the best deck. We all play and practice it a lot. The thresholds that Tony and I on Yellow Card TCG have come up with is 0 and 3. At 0 damage, Sea Maidens can't play the game. Yes. And at 3 damage, they have full combo, but they can only full combo once and are then at risk of losing to crits. 1 damage Sea Maiden is not as threatening as 3 damage steam minion, because it's still only 3 attack combo, not 5. But it still gives him enough to go from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 2 and still generate pluses through Entorana. So I think Ryan here is still in a really good position. He burned through a lot of cards in his hand to guard, but I think what he's waiting for now is relying on that 0-1-2 combo to try and just get him to where he needs to be.
And right now, Kai does have Night Rose for next turn. So if Orion A can't close him out or B can't put him on 5, he's going to be for a world of hurt. So even if he is on 1 damage, there's a Skull Dragon in drop zone and there's a Navigator on board. And if